Today, I'm bringing to the table a new perspective about not knowing what you want. You're not wasting time. Let's start with that. I hear so many people, young people especially, and I used to think this way too, thinking that not knowing what they want means that they're wasting their times right now. Not working with something that they're super passionate about means they're wasting their times. And it's such a frustrating place to be because that means that every day that you live, you feel like you're wasting life. So let's talk about why you're not wasting time. And I need you to listen to this if you're in a place of not knowing, if you're in a place of thinking that everybody else around you has the answers and you don't, because more and more we have this feeling that everyone has got to figure it out. We see it on social media, people posting the most beautiful parts of their lives. And that's fine. That makes sense. It's always going to be this way. It's up to us to remind ourselves that that's just a small piece of what their lives are. But when we compare ourselves to what we're seeing and the conclusion that we take, the interpretation that we have on people's lives based on what they're showing, the feeling is that I'm behind. If I have so many questions about my own life, if I don't know what I want to do, if I don't know where I want to be, and somebody else seems to know it, and not only somebody else, but millions of other people seem to know it, then I'm the problem. And I have to figure it out now. And every day that goes by that I don't know, I'm wasting life. I have to remind you that, first of all, no one's got to figure it out. And this is part of the reason why I love to interview people. I interview people that I look up to. And once we start talking, we realize that they're just humans. And they also have their own questions. They also have their own insecurities. And seeing them wholly, all of the different sides, is so powerful to me because it reminds me that we're all human and we're all just trying to figure it out. But this is not the way that we live life. The way that we live life is to pressure ourselves to know all the answers. And more, it feels like people are finding these answers earlier and earlier in life. Once again, we see so many people creating content, and we see so many young people creating content. And we think, okay, if this 20-year-old, this 18-year-old is making millions by doing ads and whatever on social media, what the hell am I doing with my life? That I'm 30, I'm 35, I'm whatever, 28, 40, I don't care. And I don't know what I want to do. Right? So it feels like more and more, and with time, we expect to have that answer younger, which is so counterintuitive. Because if you think about it, you start finding answers in life as you live life, which means that the more life you live, the more mature you get, the more you understand where your values are, the more you start to find answers. And there is a problem with the way that we perceive the idea, that we interpret the idea of having answers. We think that it's going to be a very safe place once I find an answer. But we don't consider the fact that answers change. And because we want the answer to be just one, it's one and done. What I want to do for my life for work, it's this one thing, and it's going to be this one thing today, tomorrow, and forever because I found my purpose. You completely disregard the fact that you change throughout life, your priorities change. So maybe you're also going to question that choice that you made today, that you thought was going to be your lifelong decision, right? So it frustrates me that when we think about having an answer to what we want to do in life, to where we want to go, we think that it's just one answer and it has to be the same throughout life. So it has to be very, very accurate, right? If it's one answer, it cannot be wrong. If it's one answer, it needs to be perfect. If it's one answer, it has to be the thing that I love the most. So I'm always reaching for more and more and more and more because if it's just one, it needs to be perfect. So it feels like it has to be one answer. And it also feels like it has to be something work related. It has to be a job. When you think, what do I want to do with my life? The answer is always a job or one particular role. We reduce ourselves to one role. It's who I am as, a professional. It's who I am as a Mother, it's who I am as X, Y, and Z. So we reduce ourselves to one role. And oftentimes it's related to work, which is a shame because we're so much more than just our jobs. And then we place into our jobs this huge pressure and expectation to fulfill our lives. And don't get me wrong, if you work with something that you love and you feel really, really fulfilled with what you do, that is amazing. It's amazing. It doesn't mean that that's going to be the same path for everybody. It doesn't mean that everybody's going to work with what they love. And that's not a sign that they'll be unhappy. They can find other ways to use their potentials and their skills in life and to serve life in different ways that is not necessarily just attached to work. Also, you have to understand that even to work with what you love, you have to figure out what's the overlap between what you love and where you're good at. And you have to become good at that one thing. You can't just be could you just come out of college thinking that you're gonna right off the bat work with something that you're super passionate about, and if you're not, you're losing time. We completely ignore the way that the life works, and we completely reject the process of becoming, which is really sad. So you think having answers is more important than the process of asking questions, and you don't realize that life in itself is the process of asking questions. So instead of looking at life in a way that if I'm not at a certain place yet, I'm wasting time, maybe try looking at life in a perspective of investing time. So instead of wasting, you're investing. I'll tell you a story about my own journey from like 22 to 30. I want to say this because I was the person who always had all the answers. Okay. Growing up, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I knew exactly what I wanted to do for work. And for me, work was and still is very important, but it was very much the foundation of my personality. I was very sure of this one thing that I wanted to do, and I knew that I was going to do it, and everything was going to be amazing. So I never had a problem with not knowing the answer growing up. So I wanted to work in entertainment. I wanted to work with artists. I wanted to be a PR for these artists. And I shaped all of my life and all of my decisions around that intention. So I went to school for PR. I studied abroad in Australia to study entertainment and marketing. I started to make some connections back in Brazil, which is where I was living. And I was so sure of what I wanted that I kid you not, and this is so wild, I wanted to be, and I was confident that I could be, Forbes 30 under 30. Okay, get this? And not just like Brazil Forbes. I was living in Brazil, mind you. Again, I wanted to be like international Forbes, US Forbes 30 under 30. Because I was so sure that once I graduated college, I was going to go on this path because I had the answers. Okay, awesome. What happened? I went to find a job after I came back from Australia. I was still in school, in college. And there weren't any entertainment jobs in my hometown. So I went for what was available, which was a job in tech. Nothing to do with what I wanted for my life, nothing. But I needed a job and I needed the experience and I needed the money. And so there was a startup that I joined, and I joined in a service team, like a professional services team. Nothing to do with my degree. And I thought then that nothing to do with my skills. Okay. But I was like, okay, I need it. So I was in this job for about 3 years. And then I graduated college. I continued to work with them. I was working full time. And one day it hit me. I'm like, I'm not doing the things that I wanted. I'm wasting time. And dude, I was what, 22 years old, right? Thinking that, oh my gosh, I'm losing my life. Bro, chill. You're 22 years old. What are you even talking about? This is wild. But to me, I'm like, this is not my plan, right? But at that point, I had already found other things that I liked, in tech, in corporate. So I'm like, do I want this? Do I not want this? So at that point, I started to be very confused. And I'm like, okay, I need something that's going to turn my world upside down, that's going to make me discover what I want and put me on a different path, right? I knew that I didn't want to stay there, partly because I also knew that I didn't want to stay in my hometown. So I wanted to move. And that was, by the way, an intention that was very clear to me always. So this happened. And then I'm like, okay, I want a big change. And I started having this intention of joining this one particular company. Okay. So I was interviewing with this company to work with them in the US. I started kind of the conversations around a role in the US. What happened? I received a call, and then this guy who was going to interview me was like, listen, if you want to interview, amazing, but now we're hiring everyone for this particular team in Colombia. I'm from Brazil. I had never been to Colombia. And he was like, if you want to continue the interview process, that's fine. So at that moment, I'm like, okay, I asked life for a change and for something that would turn my world upside down. Now I'm presented with the opportunity of moving to Colombia, which is a country I've never been to. I might as well, right? Like I asked for this, so I might as well. Anyway, so I went through the process and I got the role, I got the job. I moved to Colombia. I love it. It's like, it feels like my home to this day because I have so many amazing friends there and it's beautiful. But that experience was the best experience of my life and completely changed me, completely changed the way that I see myself. It completely changed so many things for me. I was 23. And again, nothing to do with the answers that I once had. It wasn't entertainment. It wasn't music industry. It wasn't anything like that. So I moved to Colombia. I started working for this company. I meet amazing people. I meet my husband there, and which in itself was a crazy story because he was also there. You know, he wasn't supposed to be there and he was. So we met there. I met some of my best friends and I started to ask more questions about myself. Again, just the most important moment in my life that wouldn't have happened had I not joined a tech company in the first place, right? Or maybe like, I don't know what would have happened. It's not even relevant to think about. But my point is that was completely not according to plan. But what was the result of that? I found my life partner. I found amazing friends and I learned a lot about myself. So again, not a time that I was wasting, but a time that was invested. So after that, I moved here to the US. I still work in tech and I started my podcast. I've started so many different projects. I value experimenting different things, right? So I've had a fashion brand. I've had so many more things because I'm asking questions. Today, I feel much more confident about not having the answers because I once did. For 21 years, I had the answers, right? And I was so sure of those answers and they were part of my identity that the moment that I started to not be so sure of them, it completely crushed my sense of self, completely. But it also taught me that maybe it's not about the answers. Maybe life is about the questions. And the only way that you're going to be wasting time is if you focus on somebody else's life more than your own. And if you don't live life with intention. Because life is a continuous movement of learning and experiencing and discovering. And that's going to happen regardless of you, of whether you're aware or not, of whether you're, learning something from it or not. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Life is happening and it's going to continue to happen. And that doesn't change. So you might as well live intentionally and be part of it and be an active part of it. And that's what I always try to do, even in the moments that I'm feeling the lowest and really feeling the burden of not having answers, therefore not feeling very safe or whatever. I always try to be intentional about my decisions and about my life and working with life, right? So I truly and honestly believe that the only way that you're wasting time is if you're not focused on your own life. And really, 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 the time that you're putting, like the way that you're spending your time is just looking at other people's lives all the time and not investing in getting to know yourself and what you want. So try to find a way because life is going to demand this from you to be okay not having the answers. You're not the only one. I don't have the answers. Right now, right this moment, I have no idea. I don't know, what I'm going to work with in 2 years. I have the things that I envision, that I want, that I think. Make an educated guess about what you want. It doesn't have to be set in stone. It's not a paper that you sign and then you're going to, no. It's okay to be wrong. It's okay to then, look back and be like, damn, this is not the place I want to be in anymore. This is not what I want to be doing anymore. And I'm going to change my life. But what's behind me? wasn't a waste of time. I am sure that you've learned things from the things that have happened. And if you haven't, just sit down and start thinking, what can I learn from this? Because I swear you're going to have things to say, right? What did this time do to me? Did I meet people that are important to me? Because if so, it was worth it. So it really isn't about having all the answers all the time. It's about asking the questions. Let life surprise you, and you're not wasting time. Seriously, stop looking at TikToks of an 18-year-old that seems to have all the answers. They don't. Okay? You're going to find your way. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode at the Adults Table.